The chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with artificial light, a vast hall filled with representatives from thousands of worlds. The air pulsed with arrogance. At its center, a projection of Earth hovered, blue, green, and insignificant against the black. The delegates spoke of containment, of control, of removing a primitive anomaly that refused to obey the order of the stars. Humanity's expansion was considered reckless, their speed unsettling. They adapted too quickly, built too fiercely, questioned too freely. The Council saw them as a contagion that might one day challenge the delicate balance of galactic hierarchy. The human delegation had arrived in peace. Their envoys spoke of alliance, of shared technology, of coexistence built on mutual respect. His tone was calm, diplomatic, but it drew laughter. The elder races saw in him not a partner, but an upstart. His words were dismissed as emotional rhetoric, his warnings labeled tribal theatrics. When he spoke of Earth's resilience, the hall echoed with mockery. The Council had forgotten their own bloody histories. They had grown comfortable behind their fleets and treaties, blind to the will of a species that had survived extinction more than once. An admiral from the Threx Dominion stood and demanded decisive action. He called for a demonstration, to remind the humans of their place. The suggestion was met with murmured approval. A surgical correction, he said. Not annihilation, merely discipline. The Council voted. The decision was near unanimous. A single dissenting voice, an old scholar from the Neru species, warned that humanity's pride would not break, only harden. He was ignored. The order was executed within the month. A combined fleet descended upon the Martian colonies. Orbital bombardments turned cities into glass. Luna's bases were scorched from orbit. Civilian transports attempting evacuation were intercepted and destroyed. The broadcasts reached Earth in fragments, fire, static, and the screams of families as atmosphere burned away. Billions watched helplessly, their feeds ending in silence. The Council broadcasted its justification across the stars, calling it the stabilization of an aggressive frontier species. They believed it would end there. But humanity did not answer. There were no declarations, no retaliatory strikes. Earth went quiet. The survivors mourned in private. The government sealed communication with off-worlders. Galactic observers interpreted the silence as surrender, relief sweeping through the political ranks. The Threx admiral received medals. The Council's decision was archived as a success in preventive peacekeeping. Yet small things began to shift. Human channels stopped transmitting. Satellites once open for trade went offline. Cargo convoys vanished from shared routes. Asteroid mining licenses were revoked. The Council assumed Earth had collapsed under its own despair. They did not understand that humanity had turned inward, that their silence was not retreat, it was containment of fury. Weeks became months, months into years. The Council moved on, focusing on border disputes and resource wars elsewhere. Humanity was forgotten, reduced to a footnote in their records. But on the edge of the Sol system, deep within the black, something stirred. Energy readings spiked beyond known thresholds. Deep space probes went dark. When questioned, the Science Assembly dismissed it as solar interference. Only a handful of watchers, those who had studied humanity closely, felt unease. At last, one archivist noticed a transmission logged 3 years after the bombardment. It was unaddressed, no encryption, no source tag. A single phrase repeated once across every open frequency before vanishing. Understood. No one could trace where it came from. The Council ignored it. The phrase was too small, too human to matter in a galaxy that had forgotten compassion. And yet, on Earth, silence had become purpose. Factories moved beneath oceans. Shipyards vanished from orbit. Research shifted into caverns shielded from scans. Generations that grew under the shadow of loss stopped speaking of peace. They remembered the laughter of those who called them unworthy. They built not for revenge, but for correction. The Council, secure in its arrogance, mistook that quiet for compliance. They could not imagine that within that silence, humanity was rebuilding the definition of war. Decades passed without a whisper from Earth. Trade networks that once thrived with human merchants went hollow, the lanes near Seoul marked as abandoned. Reports from scouts described ghost colonies, stations intact but lifeless, power cells drained, no bodies, no signs of struggle. The council dismissed it as decay from a failed civilization, a predictable collapse. They congratulated themselves for preventing what they called a human contagion, never realizing they had only driven it deeper underground. Across the outer sectors, faint anomalies began appearing. Mining fields stripped bare overnight, entire asteroid belts relocated, raw material counts fluctuating in ways no known species could achieve. Surveillance arrays tried to track the activity but failed. Data packets corrupted, timestamps altered, sensors blinded. Every investigation ended with the same conclusion: unknown interference from natural causes. Yet a handful of intelligence analysts knew better. The patterns were deliberate, methodical, almost mathematical. Within the Council's intelligence network, whispers began to circulate. Some claimed that humans had retreated to the inner solar regions, converting their system into a fortress. Others believed they were extinct, victims of their own rage. Neither side had proof, and no one was willing to risk another military incursion. The galaxy had grown comfortable in its delusion, unwilling to imagine that the silence itself was an engineered weapon. Occasionally, freighters operating near human space vanished. The few recovered logs showed short bursts of static, then nothing but black. Their last readings revealed gravitational distortions not caused by any known engine type. A captain who escaped one such encounter described a feeling, pressure in the bones, the sensation of being watched by something vast and silent. He retired the next day, refused to speak again. His report was buried. Years stretched into generations. Younger species grew up believing humans were a myth. Scholars called them a cautionary tale about uncontrolled aggression. But among the oldest races, the ones who remembered the fires of Mars and the screams over Luna, there lingered unease. An ancient Cell diplomat, once stationed on Earth, tried to warn the Council again. He told them humanity did not vanish, they evolved. He had seen that look in their eyes when they lost everything. It was not surrender. It was calculation. His words were dismissed as paranoia. Meanwhile, deep space stations began detecting irregular gravitational signatures near long-dead human borders. Every time a probe was sent, it returned with scrambled telemetry, sometimes containing ghostly reflections, vague metallic shapes, gone before sensors could lock. Scientists insisted it was artifact noise. Military strategists, however, began reinforcing their perimeters. They told themselves it was routine. But behind closed doors, fear spread like a shadow. A decade later, the Threx Dominion, once proud of leading the attack, began losing ships on routine patrols. Entire fleets went missing without distress calls. Their last transmission was a single word, distorted beyond recognition, followed by silence. The Council ordered investigations. None returned. Panic simmered beneath diplomatic smiles, but pride kept them from admitting fear. They blamed pirates, rogue AI, natural disasters, anything but the one enemy they had long declared dead. On the council floor, one analyst presented the impossible, a pattern of destruction spreading across outer sectors, each system vanishing in geometric order, moving inward like a tide. When overlaid with ancient trade routes, it matched the old Terran exploration paths. No one wanted to believe it. The speaker was escorted out for inciting xenophobic hysteria. That same night, his transport ship disappeared en route to his homeworld. Rumors spread in the dark corners of space stations. Crews spoke of phantom fleets, vessels invisible to radar yet seen in the reflection of a planet's rings. Engines that made no sound. Weapons that left no radiation. They whispered that humanity had learned stealth not as a tactic, but as nature. And then came the first undeniable sign. A relay hub near the Orion spur caught a faint transmission, unencrypted, drifting through interstellar space. It wasn't a distress call, nor a threat. Just a pulse, measured and steady. The data, when decoded, revealed ancient human numerals arranged in countdown sequence. No explanation. No origin. The council met in emergency session. Debates erupted, accusations flew, and fear clawed at the chamber's calm. But by the time they voted to send reconnaissance, the countdown had already reached 0. Every listening array within 3 sectors shut down simultaneously, their cores melted beyond recovery. In their place, a single line of text appeared on every system screen across the network. Observation concluded. The council realized too late that the silence they had dismissed was never absence. It was observation, study, and preparation. The humans had been watching, measuring everything. The storm had not arrived yet. It was still gathering strength, patient as evolution itself. The first confirmed encounter came without warning. A border fleet from the Threx Dominion detected an energy surge beyond map space. No transmissions, no known signatures. Within seconds, every ship lost power. When communication was restored, the armada was gone. Scanners found only debris fields of molten metal and frozen vapor. The Council dismissed it as reactor failure until similar disappearances occurred across 5 sectors. The losses were too precise, too clean. There were no survivors, no distress calls, not even radiation trails. Someone, or something, had erased entire fleets as if drawing a line through history. Attempts to contact Earth failed. Probes sent toward Sol never returned. The few that reached the edge transmitted fragmented visuals, vast structures orbiting empty space, black as obsidian, shaped like nothing known to engineering logic. Then static. Analysts concluded they were artificial defense networks, but no one could determine their energy source. Some theorized humanity had harnessed gravitational collapse as fuel. Others dismissed the images as forgeries. The Council ordered silence, fearing panic. Yet within weeks, their own ships began encountering invisible forces disrupting quantum drives. Navigation systems froze. Crews vanished mid-sentence during live transmissions. When the first human vessel appeared, it didn't arrive by warp or jump. It simply existed, materializing without distortion. Its hull reflected no light, absorbing starlight like a void. Identification failed. Even the AI couldn't lock onto its outline. The fleet surrounding it attempted standard challenge codes. No reply. The next moment, their sensors overloaded. Every ship powered down simultaneously, drifting helplessly. Then, one by one, they disintegrated. No explosion, just silence and scattering atoms. The anomaly vanished. Panic consumed the Council. Emergency meetings stretched across cycles. Plans for retaliation formed and collapsed under confusion. Every simulation predicted extinction if conflict escalated. Still, pride demanded action. A coalition assembled the largest armada in galactic history, 30,000 ships, 10 species technology combined. They advanced toward Sol with confidence born of desperation. The first wave never reported in. The second arrived only to find fragments of their predecessors, orbiting an artificial event horizon. No heat, no wreckage patterns, only fragments suspended in perfect orbit, like trophies. Then came the message. It wasn't a voice, but a series of visual symbols broadcast across every channel, Earth's coordinates, followed by one word in hundreds of alien languages, ***. Return. The Council misinterpreted it as a demand for negotiation and sent envoys. None arrived. Later transmissions from distant observatories showed brief flashes where their ships had been, then nothing. Across the galaxy, worlds began to shut down communication in fear. Trade routes collapsed. Species that once mocked humanity sealed their borders. No one wanted to draw attention. Yet no defense mattered. Human fleets moved with eerie coordination, appearing simultaneously across light years, erasing installations with silent precision. They did not occupy, did not conquer, did not speak. They dismantled everything that had once belonged to those who ordered their suffering. Intelligence reports tried to understand the weapons. There were no beams, no projectiles, no known mechanisms of destruction. The victims simply ceased to exist. Some believed the humans had reached control over dimensional compression, collapsing matter to quantum dust. Others whispered they had become machines, Their consciousness merged into cold algorithms that calculated punishment beyond emotion. Entire civilizations surrendered unasked, offering tribute to entities that never answered. The silence was worse than any declaration of war. It was systematic judgment. Each world targeted wasn't random. It matched archived votes from the council session that approved the Mars bombardment centuries ago. Not a single innocent system was touched. Precision replaced vengeance. Within months, the map of the galaxy changed. Hundreds of worlds went dark, their stars unmonitored, their satellites erased. Council Command lost contact with 2/3 of its member states. Panic devolved into chaos. Accusations turned allies into enemies. Amid the disarray, one intercepted message surfaced from a dying fleet, an audio fragment, human in origin, translated as ***. This is not revenge. This is correction. Those words spread faster than any fleet. Every species understood what it meant. Humanity had evolved beyond retribution. They weren't fighting for survival. They were editing the galaxy, rewriting the order that once enslaved them. For the first time in millennia, the Council realized the truth. The humans they tried to destroy were not returning as victims or conquerors. They were returning as the consequence of arrogance itself. The Galactic Council's capital trembled beneath the weight of terror. What had once been the center of power now felt like the core of a dying empire. Reports arrived every hour, each worse than the last. Entire sectors erased, fleets dissolved, governments collapsing into silence. The few remaining councilors clung to their positions, arguing over strategies that meant nothing. No one wanted to say it aloud, but everyone knew humanity had returned, and there was no defense against them. Attempts at diplomacy failed before they began. Every transmission sent toward human space received no acknowledgement. Communication satellites near the soul boundary recorded strange distortions, as if signals were being absorbed by the void itself. The Council authorized one final diplomatic envoy, escorted by neutral fleets. They never reappeared. In their place, a transmission echoed across every galactic channel, Earth's image, pristine and untouched, rotating slowly against the black. Below it, a single phrase appeared. Judgment rendered. The meaning was unmistakable. Panic consumed entire systems. Planets that once mocked humanity turned on each other, desperate to hide their involvement in the ancient massacre. Civil wars erupted overnight. The unity that held the Council together fractured into paranoia and blame. Some species attempted to destroy archives of the Martian assault, hoping to erase their guilt. But the humans remembered. Every vote, every signature, every ship design used in the original attack was traced and marked. Within days, those responsible vanished from existence. Their homeworlds remained intact, powerless, disconnected, silent. Then came the blackout. Without warning, stellar networks across the inner rim went dark. Communication relays melted, navigation systems failed, and planetary shields collapsed as if disabled by command. From orbit, faint silhouettes appeared, human ships, vast and soundless, blotting out starlight. They did not fire. Instead, they projected streams of symbols into the sky, visible from the surface. Long lists of names. Billions of names. The dead of Mars, Luna, and every destroyed colony. Those who once called themselves civilized were forced to look upon the record of what they had done. When the Council demanded to know what the humans wanted, no answer came. Their silence was worse than any declaration. Whole species begged for mercy, offering tribute, surrendering fleets and territories. The humans ignored them. They didn't occupy, didn't negotiate. They simply dismantled the infrastructure of empire, power grids, defense satellites, resource hubs, until the entire galactic core descended into darkness. In weeks, the technological age collapsed. Planets that had known light for thousands of years fell into night. The Council's last emergency session ended in chaos. The Grand Chamber, once filled with rhetoric and arrogance, was reduced to pleading and confession. Delegates cried for forgiveness to an enemy that wasn't listening. Some argued that the humans had transcended biology, that they had become pure intelligence, an entity enforcing balance. Others believed it was vengeance, refined into mathematical precision. But none could deny the truth: humanity was dismantling the system that once ruled them, piece by piece. The Threk's dominion, once the loudest in demanding Earth's punishment, was the first to vanish completely. No destruction was recorded, just the sudden absence of light from every world in their domain. Where their sun once burned, only darkness remained. No radiation, no debris. It was as if the entire civilization had been erased from time. That was the moment the Council accepted defeat. In desperation, the remaining leaders broadcast a universal surrender, begging for dialogue. Their signal received only a return feed, a mirror of themselves, their chamber displayed from an unknown perspective. For a moment, they saw their own faces on every screen across the galaxy, illuminated by their fear. Then the image distorted, replaced by a single message written in human text. "You called it peacekeeping. We call it memory." The blackout spread to the Council's homeworld moments later. Power grids flickered out, skies darkened, and for the first time in thousands of years, the rulers of the galaxy saw true night. Above them, a final formation of human vessels aligned in silence, forming a ring that eclipsed their sun. There was no sound, no explosion, only the slow, suffocating realization that this was the punishment they had earned, not death, but insignificance. When the systems finally stabilized, the ships were gone. The council chamber stood empty, its walls cracked and cold. Records of their empire remained intact, preserved like an exhibit for history's judgment. Across the stars, silence settled once more, heavy and absolute. The galaxy understood at last that the humans hadn't destroyed civilization, they had ended arrogance. And in their silence, every species saw the reflection of its own crimes. Centuries passed, and the galaxy rebuilt itself upon fear. The great empires were gone, replaced by scattered enclaves living in constant caution. The name of Earth became legend, a story whispered rather than spoken. Explorers who ventured near the Sol system never returned, their last transmissions showing only darkness and a faint, rhythmic glow surrounding the planet. Over time, it came to be known as the Sleeping World, a forbidden zone where the laws of space itself seemed altered. No traveler dared cross its borders twice. Generations who had never seen humanity still felt their presence. Every attempt to revive the Galactic Council failed, as no species could trust another. Each meeting ended with accusations, memories of silence, and the unspoken fear that the Watchers might be listening. Trade collapsed into isolation. Science retreated into secrecy. Even the most advanced civilizations limited expansion, convinced that human eyes observed from the void. They did not understand that it was not vigilance that restrained them, it was guilt. Occasionally, reports surfaced of untraceable ships appearing on the outskirts of distant systems. They never attacked without cause. They simply appeared when tyranny resurfaced, when one world attempted to enslave another, when an empire began to rise again. The aggressor would vanish overnight. No wreckage, no survivors, only absence. Afterward, the stars near those systems dimmed for days, as if mourning. Across the galaxy, these events became known as the silent interventions. Every culture interpreted them differently. Some called it divine punishment. Others called it balance. But every witness used one word to describe the culprits: humans. Attempts to prove humanity's existence always ended in confusion. Scans found no biological signatures, only traces of energy that defied classification. Artificial intelligence theorists proposed that humans had digitized their consciousness, merging into a single collective that guided invisible fleets. Religious sects declared that humanity had ascended beyond matter, becoming guardians of moral equilibrium. Scholars argued, but none could explain the consistency, the way every attack, every punishment, followed perfect logic, never striking the innocent, never seeking territory, never claiming credit. In time, the myth of humanity became a cornerstone of interstellar law. Governments invoked it to prevent war, to justify restraint. "Remember Earth" became a universal warning etched into academy walls and military manuals. It wasn't fear of destruction that kept peace. It was the reminder that justice, once awakened, did not sleep again. The galaxy grew quieter, not out of harmony, but out of awe. Centuries turned into millennia. The coordinates of Earth faded from official records, but fragments endured in forgotten archives. A lone expedition of scholars from the surviving neutral systems sought to rediscover the origin of the legend. Their journey took decades. When they arrived, they found a world untouched by time. Earth orbited a dormant sun surrounded by concentric defense rings larger than planets. The rings pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Their instruments failed instantly upon approach. The closer they came, the heavier the silence became, as though sound itself refused to exist there. From orbit, they saw no movement on the surface, no light from cities, no sign of life. Yet, the world glowed faintly with energy readings beyond comprehension, signals repeating endlessly in mathematical sequences that resembled language but carried no translation. Before retreating, one scholar risked decoding a fragment. It was a phrase repeated over and over in every known human dialect. "We remember." The expedition left in silence, unwilling to disturb what remained. Their account spread across the stars, confirming what the galaxy already feared, that humanity had not died, only transcended. They had become something vast, incorruptible, and eternal. They were not gods, nor monsters, but the echo of consequence carved into the structure of reality itself. As ages passed, new civilizations rose and fell, always cautious of history's shadow. Whenever arrogance threatened balance, stars dimmed, and silence followed. In that silence, the galaxy was reminded of what it had once done, and what it had unleashed. For all their progress, for all their power, no being dared to claim dominion again. Because somewhere beyond the reach of time, the Earth still waited, wrapped in its rings of light, silent yet aware. And within that silence rested a truth older than empires: humanity had never sought conquest, only understanding. When they found none, they became the reminder that peace was not given. It was enforced.